Legacy. What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a minute, but this is the third installment, or the fifth if you're counting each individual video. But this is the third installment of my Enneagram and writing series. If you're new to the Enneagram and want a refresher, you can go check out my prologue video over here, and it'll explain all the Enneagram speak and the details I'm gonna be getting into. But if you're already brushed up, let's dig into what makes the Type 3 tick. Threes are very image-conscious people. They know how to talk not just to people, but to any people, really. They could be a bank manager walking into a mechanic's workshop, but give them a minute or less and they'll already be speaking the lingo and have a really strong rapport with these people. And it's incredible. One person in my life that I'm not sure, but I have a strong hunch he's a 3, said, "I never meet a stranger." And I thought that just summed up this aspect of the 3's personality just so well. These people are also very task-oriented and driven by a desire to achieve success, and when they're trapped in the shadow of their type, avoid failure. They are incredibly capable, especially in the workplace, and they know how to make the hardest tasks look like they could be done in your sleep. And while these 3s are overachievers with incredible goals and also the motivation to realize them, they're also incredibly relational. And at their best, 3s aren't just chasing their own success, they're seeking to lift others up as part of a team. And they're also right in the middle of the heart triad or the feeling triad, which means that that most accessible emotion or struggle for the Type 3 is shame. But they don't externalize this like the Type 2 does or internalize it like the Type 4. They forget it. And the 3's repression of this shame can honestly cut them off from that heart intelligence as a whole. And a big part of the 3's redemptive journey is getting back to the heart and confronting shame. But before we get into that, let's talk about some personal experience. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. This video was really hard for me to write, and may or may not be the reason it took me so long to get back to YouTube. Because I don't know any 3's, or at least not well enough to speak into something as deep as the human psyche and personality. So instead of talking about my personal experience with 3's I know, I'm gonna get into kind of how I figured out what the type was about. When I was first learning about 3's, I had a gut level wariness and suspicion of them, and one that I'm a little ashamed of, to be honest. 4's and 3's, I think, try to reach the same goal for similar reasons, but we go about it from opposite angles. And 3's and 4's and 2's as well crave affirmation and identity, but 3's have a very unique way of approaching that. They're able to read a room in an instant, and then they can craft a very specific image to match what the room needs. They're almost like chameleons, except instead of trying to match the room perfectly, they seek to become what people in the room are looking for. They accent the room almost. And as a 4 who seeks affirmation by pursuing authenticity, I think I kind of resented this a little bit. Maybe a little. And I didn't quite realize that same ache for recognition was something that 3's dealt with as well. However, that kind of hit a turning point when I listened to Sleeping at Last's song and podcast for the song 3. In the podcast, he talked about how oftentimes what we see of the Type 3 is their bombastic, overachieving personality. And this comes from their superpower, which is the knack for creating connections. They see and understand people so well that they can pick out the smallest real connection and spin a story, a show, or a relationship from it. And you would expect a song about that kind of person to be sweeping and orchestral and impressive, right? But Sleeping at Last studied for this song, and he started to realize the inner vulnerability of the Type 3 and the pain that this caricature of the performer can cause them. And what I learned was that 3's don't perform because they think they're all that. They do it because they perceive a lack in themselves that they're trying to fill. which I would say is a great segue into their wounds and motivation. As kids, threes took on the wounding message that their own identity was somehow not good enough. Like there was always something better they could be to deserve love. And in response to this, they put aside their own identity to become what their community, whether that was their family, their school, or some person on TV, thought was most valuable. Threes felt most loved when they were most seen. So they attached themselves to the nurturing influence in their lives and taught themselves to perform, to do well, and when they did, they got praise. Even as kids, this set them up to dread and abhor failure while glorifying and pursuing success. And let me reiterate to all the parents and caregivers out there, more often than not, this is a perceived wound, not some fault of yours. This is about empathy, not shame. And particularly because shame is one of the core emotions that threes struggle with. Since they feel intrinsically unworthy of love, they try to forget their shame, to overwrite it with success. Because of that, their perceived worth becomes rooted in the opinion of others. And now, you can probably understand why image is such a big deal to threes, especially when they're unhealthy. Since they struggle to self-nurture, unhealthy threes learn to manipulate their surroundings, and they transform them into places that scratch that itch for affection for them. They use that innate ability to craft connections, to read the room and build a persona to please it. And this leads to one of the great struggles of the type, and that's deceit. In this unhealthy place, threes will often use deceit to hide failures and to work a room, but I think greater than that, they use it to deceive themselves. Threes are in the heart triad, yes, but their response to those intense feelings is to disconnect from them. And sometimes this disconnect can lead to the threes checking out and convincing themselves that they don't need their feelings, that their identity is really just what the people see, that there's nothing behind the mask. And when they're living in this lie, threes become restless and frustrated. They can often take on the negative traits of the type 9, succumbing to apathy, losing themselves in busy work, and avoiding places and challenges that force them to change. Haunted by the possibility that maybe they aren't enough, they start to cling to their numerous personas they wear because they've forgotten who they are without them. Paths to transformation. And that's a really, really dark place for the type 3. But there's hope in the darkness, and that hope is fulfilled with truth. And that truth is that you are worthy. Even in your deepest failures, you have value for who you are, not for what you do. If you identify as a 3, I sincerely hope that you know that. Recognition and love have been and will continue to be two separate things. Recognition can be won and lost, but real love isn't like that. It's easy to be afraid of giving up control of what people see and think of you, but much like it is for every person on earth, you never had to earn love. I truly, truly hope that, like in the song 3, you can one day leave your greatest failures on display with an asterisk, worthy of love anyway, because you are worthy of love anyway. And when the type 3s are holding on to that truth, their superpower really shines, because in confronting that buried shame, 3s can then reconnect with their hearts, bringing together the amazing empathy and ingeniousness with their ability to make connections and complete tasks. And instead of relying on a persona crafted to please a room, healthy 3s find the common threads of the people around them and craft community from it. In knowing their value, they breed even greater value in the people around them. And not only that, but they also know how to care for people. In integration, they can borrow the healthy traits of the type 6, letting go of defensiveness and competition and reaching into warmth and community. They're the kind of people who don't sit around offering platitudes when they see a need. They pitch in and do the work, investing themselves and their massive talent into building up and lifting up the people around them. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. Please go check out the rest of the videos if you're enjoying the series. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video around to your writer friends. And for those of y'all out here that resonate with the Type 3, I really, really hope this was honoring and insightful in a way that lifts you up like you lift up those around you. And if you're close with a Type 3, I hope this helped you understand them a little better. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.